Donkey Kong Country 3 holds a special place in my heart, and it might surprise some of you returning viewers to hear that it's a place the previous two games could never occupy. While 3 is easily my least favorite of the trilogy, it was the only one I ever owned as a kid, and so I spent much more time with it than the others. I don't think that made me biased towards it, but I do think it's made me able to appreciate it for what it is. See, Donkey Kong Country 3 was made by a drastically different team than the first two. This is evident in everything from the character designs, environment designs, and music, to the new additions like the Overworld and Banana Birds. And while there's a lot to love in the third game, a lot of what made me such a stupidly big fan of the series is sadly lacking. The soundtrack, while fine, don't get me wrong, is missing that X factor. Songs like Aquatic Ambience and Stickerbush Symphony, those iconic tunes the series is known for. You won't find anything like that here. As for the environment, there's a consistency, a sort of groundedness to it all. And while that makes the world-to-world transitions much more fluid, those breathtaking, otherworldly environments that made the previous game so fun to explore are gone too. So, stacked up against the previous two games, it's not hard to pick this one apart. But that would be doing this game a disservice, and it's certainly not what this series is about. My time is too valuable to spend it shit-talking something that has brought me so much joy, and your time is much too valuable to watch it. Anyway, this is part 1 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country 3. Sorry for the long intro, but we've got a bit more to cover before we dive into Lakeside Limbo. There's a bit more to the overworld this time around. For starters, vehicles. The overworld functions just like the other games when you're moving from level to level, but in the water, you've got free reign to move as you please. Areas like Lake Orangutanga you can swim about in no problem, but for the Northern Hemisphere, you're limited to vehicles. It's like that RPG overworld thing, where it's a small-scale representation of a bigger world. The Northern Hemisphere is much bigger than it appears here. So big that you need a boat to traverse it. There are other vehicles that come in later, but we'll talk about them when the time comes. Starting here, at Wrinkly Save Cave, we meet Wrinkly again, who has retired from teaching. There isn't much to say about Wrinkly, but I love everything about her in this game. She's been given a redesign, reflecting her transition from teacher to retiree. Her save cave is this cozy, cool looking place with a lot going on. I've always felt that save areas should feel like coming home. Resident Evil does a pretty good job of this, with their beautiful, relaxing save themes. But this is the first time we've had anything like it in the DKC trilogy, and as the game goes on, the room fills up with banana birds. We'll talk about them later. I could go on about how Wrinkly has various musical themes and animations, and how every time you visit her, she's always doing something different. But I think that about covers it, right? I love that they went the extra mile with her here, and they did a killer job. Moving on. Left is where we meet our first Brothers Bear, Bazaar, in his general store. He's got some junk for sale, but not a whole lot we can do about that just now. It's worth keeping the items in mind though, a mirror and a seashell. Back down the path to Funky's Rentals. This is, to me, probably the coolest Funky has ever been. I like the surfing aviator Funky. I tolerate the doomsday prepper with natural born killers Shades Funky, but this is the coolest Funky. He's babysitting our secondary character Kiddy and handballs that responsibility to us. Kiddy cops a lot of shit, but I love this dude. I like to think of Kiddy Kong as a sort of mix between DK and Diddy. This isn't accurate, but whatever. He rolls like DK, but he's got a few more tricks up his sleeve. Dixie can use him to break through weak spots in the floor, or ride him like a barrel. Oh yeah, the team up mechanic is back here too. Arguably, Kiddy's best skill is his ability to skip along the surface of the water. It's rarely necessary, but it's fucking cool as fuck. And it makes you feel like such a boss when you pull it off. Again, I could say more, but this video is already running super long, so I'll just say I love Kiddy, and I can't wait to see him in a new game. He deserves it. So with Kiddy in tow, Dixie rents the motorboat from Funky and sets off for Lake Orangutanga in search of the missing Kongs. The motorboat is fine, but it can't travel over the rocky barriers, so it's relegated to this small patch of water. There's a cave to the north we can check out, but we'll save that for later. Lake Orangutanga is to the southeast. First level, Lakeside Limbo. The composition of this level isn't what I'd call dynamic. It almost feels like each section is meant to be viewed as its own thing, like being ushered through rooms in a museum or something. Here's what I mean. The level breaks down like this: sneaks, cobble and showcasing Kiddy's ability to break through weak floors, the first bonus area, collect the stars, coins introduction and the introduction of ropes, some bullshit and a checkpoint barrel, a patch of water, introducing the swimming mechanics, a second patch of water and the second bonus area, grab 15 bananas, Ellie's introduction and the showcase of her suction ability, title of your sex tape, alongside Booty Bird and It's All Deal, title of your other sex tape, and then the level's just kind of over. Compare that to the 1, 2, 3 progression I wouldn't shut the fuck up about throughout all of the Overthinking DKC2 series, and you can see what I mean. It is what it is, and I'm not saying it's a bad level. The bar's not set too high for new players, and for returning players, there's no shortage of new things to show them. But compared to Jungle Hijinks and Pirate Panic, this first impression leaves a bit to be desired. I don't think it's fair to skim over the level and call it a day, so let's dive in a little bit deeper. Lakeside Limbo is the first of the boardwalk levels, obviously.
Under the boardwalk, with each other.
But it's also the first of only 3 Cobble appearances. Cobble is this game's critter or clump, yet he's barely used, and in fact only appears on the boardwalk levels. It's a shame because despite his plain design, I quite like him. Sneak, Coin and Booty Bird are the only other enemies to make an appearance here, and of the 3, Sneak is the only real danger. He replaces Neek, who in turn replaced Naughty. He's fine. He's a little more gnarly looking than those two, which I feel works in his favor. He gets a bit more love than Neek got in DKC2, so that's cool. Coin is a unique enemy, in that he's how players get the DK coins now. He uses the coin as a shield against the players, and each appearance of Coin is a sort of mini puzzle, figuring out how to take him out. It's a great idea, and he's a great addition to the Kremlings. I find the enemies of DKC3 to be a bit of a mixed bag, but he's one I'm really fond of. Booty Bird can hurt you if you're stupid enough to touch it, but it's really just there as a sort of living treasure chest. God, I hate that I just said that. Bucking the trend of Rambi appearing in the first level of the game, we are instead introduced to Ellie the elephant. She's clearly only a baby elephant, and she's awesome. While I would have liked a bigger range of animal buddies, and to see more of them return, I do love Ellie and wish we got more of her in future games. She's also one of the most versatile animal buddies. She can bounce off pretty much every enemy, she can pick up barrels and throw them, she can swim, she can use her trunk to suck nearby barrels towards her, and she can also store water in her schnoz to shoot at enemies later. Her one drawback is she's afraid of mice, as we'll see later. The bonus levels are cool too. They're very, very easy, and not much imagination went into them, but they're the first 2 bonus areas in the game. They're supposed to be basic. Collect the Stars returns from DKC2, and you could make the argument that it helps players get accustomed to the rope mechanics, but I'm not going to make that argument. I will say that the first 2 levels of not just DKC, but DKC2, both had their second level revolve around rope mechanics, while DKC3 weaved the ropes into the first level. So, I don't know, that's cool. The game has that many ideas that they couldn't really spend an entire level getting players up to speed with the ropes, I suppose. The second bonus area introduces the new bonus type thing, Grab the Bananas. Simple concept, fun as hell, and often pretty damn challenging to boot. You could say this one's also a bit of a crash course in rope mechanics, but I'm likely overthinking it. You could make the argument that the laid-back nature of the level is a reflection of its location. I get the impression, both from the story and the game itself, that Lake Orangutanga is a sort of vacation spot. You've got the beautiful water, with the mountains and forest reflected in its surface, all under a cotton candy sky. The music isn't particularly tense or energetic, and while not slow, it does lend itself well to the more casual nature of the setting. The boardwalk is also in a much better state than, say, the decks of Gangplank Galleon, which were splintered and coming apart. Alright, that's the first of many Overthinking DKC3 episodes in the can. I left quite a bit out, such as the returning warp barrels, red, green and blue life balloons, and the new silver bear coins, but it is what it is. If this isn't the longest level-based Overthinking DKC episode so far, then it's definitely close to it, so best to wrap this one up here. I know I sounded a bit critical of Lakeside Limbo here, and for good reason, but when you're sitting there, controller in hand, all those criticisms just disappear. For whatever reason, Lakeside Limbo is just plain fun.